So here we go, Godzilla versus Biollante. This is from NECA. This is the Godzilla figure based on that 1989 movie, I believe it was. This is the first figure in this scale based on this movie that I'm aware of from any of the major companies making Godzilla figures now. There was a 1989 Biollante movie Godzilla figure released by SH Monster Arts. However, that was a much larger scale, like light up, had sounds and everything else. So technically it wasn't meant to be in the same kind of scale with all the rest of these figures. But yeah, let's take a look. So here he is, out of the box. I did have to like put some hot water on the end of the tail to get it to plug into the actual base of the figure. That's inside the box. They give you like a little manual, like guide type thing that tells you to do that if it's difficult to put the tail on. My first impressions are I actually really like this guy. I've heard a number of reviews that were kind of like, some were a little warmer than others when it came down to this figure, but honestly my first impressions are that it's really nice. I mean, it's certainly worth the money. I mean, it's a heavy figure, so it's definitely you know, certainly worth its weight in plastic alone. But yeah, like this tail I think is probably one of the longest tails that NECA has ever made for a Godzilla figure, and it's completely posable. Like, you can pretty much, I don't know, you can pose it as well as most of the SH Monster Arts tails I've seen, especially when you consider the older NECA figures. Their tails were like the bendy wire ones, and they were significantly shorter. So this, I mean, I like this. I think this is even longer than their Shin Godzilla's tail, which, I mean, shouldn't be the case, but I guess that goes to show how far they've come. So getting a little bit of a closer look here. Here's his head. Gonna move the light a little bit. I like the way it looks. I think I've heard some people say it looks maybe a little bit too feline or a little bit too like wolf-like in a lot of ways, but I don't recall it looking any different in the movie. Now, to be honest with you, this is one of, I think, 3 Godzilla movies that I've never seen the full way through. It's this Biollante one, Godzilla vs. Mothra 2 I've never seen all the way through, and Destroy All Monsters. So my experience might not get the mileage that you need to properly assess this figure, so I'm going to just look at it based on what I got in my hand here. That said, I think they did a good job with the details of the figure. If you look at him straight on, and I don't know if the light will catch that, but it looks like he's maybe slightly a little bit cross-eyed, but I don't think that's a problem if you're looking at him from pretty much any other angle other than straight on. There's no paint on the spines and like the back of his head. Like usually there's like dry brushing on at least the ones on his neck, and unfortunately we don't have that here. I'm not sure if that's movie accurate or whatever the case is, but one thing I will say that I really like, typically NECA with their Godzilla figures manages to put the jaw hinge in like too far forward, which means when you open his jaw it looks like he's got a huge like underbite. But this, proud to say, does not look like that's the case. I don't think. Maybe a little, but it's nowhere near as bad as others I've seen. So okay, yeah, maybe I just proved myself wrong a little bit. It's not as bad though. And yeah, depending on the angle you look at it from, it's going to change your perspective on it a little bit, but the detail is there. I like the face sculpt. Let's move on to the body, shall we? So you got some dry brushing on the body. You do get, as far as the arms go, you get a decent hinge there. It does come out a little bit, so about 90 degrees actually, so you can get the arm out, which is nice. You also get elbow joint, which is a little bit tight on mine, but you can certainly work it and get it a little bit more functional. You have a wrist swivel. You have a hinge inside the hand to be able to open the fingers up, which I always did appreciate about NECA's figures. And you also have a hinge at the wrist to be able to like kind of move his wrist up and down. Mine is a little bit tight, so I mean, these NECA figures, you sometimes have to just watch that. But yeah, it's going to be the same on both sides. Also, I should point out that his neck, at the base of the neck and at like kind of the base of the head, has 2 points. So you can get him to, you know, look down pretty significantly. He can look up a fair bit as well, so that's good. And plus you can also like move his head side to side a little bit too. So pretty good actually. For the lower part of the body, he does have like a waist swivel. I guess that would be his waist, but it also like is on a ball joint as well, so you can kind of lean him over to either side, or you can lean him forward and back. And I will say that as you lean him over forward, he does, you know, get a space between his back spines there, his dorsal fin. But, you know, I guess that's just kind of the sacrifice you make for articulation. You can lean him back a little bit too, and it's not as far back just because he's so stocky, but you do get a little bit of a back motion out of him. So between like all the movement you get out of his head and neck and kind of his body there, you will be able to kind of like get him in pretty interesting poses, actually. Not what I would have expected to say about a figure this thick, but what can I say? Speaking of thick, his legs, and most Godzilla's legs actually, are very, very stocky. This one's actually moved pretty well though. I mean, they're on ball joints, so you can actually get them out as well as straight forward and back. So, you know, you will get some range out of the legs. I don't think there's a single Godzilla figure with like awesome hip articulation just because of the way the figure looks, you know, just the way it's built. But you do get a little bit of a wider stance on this one if you want it, or you can stand him straight up, which is probably how most people will choose to do this. He does have a knee joint, which is, you know, you don't get a ton of movement in the legs, which is kind of standard for most NECA Godzilla figures. And the feet, you actually do get a little bit of an ankle pivot as well as a rotation as well. So pretty articulated legs for something that's so big. You know, again, it's not setting the world on fire, but it's not bad. Something interesting to note is if you're looking at the bottom of Godzilla's feet, the peg holes are in two different spots. Like his right foot has it in the ball of his foot while his left foot has it in the heel. Don't know what the deal is, but just something worth pointing out. And again, I mentioned the tail. It's all hard plastic with ball joints inside of it, so you get actually a really, really nice range of motion out of it. So honestly, I like this a lot. So you do get this atomic blast effect too, which is like a pearlescent white and blue spiral paint job kind of a thing. You can see there's like a kind of a groove where like his teeth could line up with it to make sure it's in his mouth correctly. Let's take a look. So there's that with the atomic blast. It's a nice touch. I don't know, like these atomic blast effects, I never find myself really using them for all that much. I mean, if I'm sitting them on a shelf, I'll use them, but yeah, overall, they're just kind of nice to have, but I will probably never display my Godzilla with this. That said, the coloring is nice. It does fit snugly in his mouth. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much jammed like the whole way into the back of his throat because of this little like kind of reed looking piece that just kind of stick that right in there. But yeah, so that's what that looks like. You could say that his tail is an accessory too, but that's just kind of more of a assembly piece rather than just a straight up accessory for the figure. So here you'll see him compared to some of my favorite NECA Godzilla figures. Now this of course is the original 1954 Godzilla, which I think you'll see what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like shorter tails. Now I do think that's movie accurate, the length of his tail, but yeah, they definitely have certainly improved the way they do this. But yeah, he's a little taller than the 54. This is the 2014 American Legendary Godzilla, which he's also a little bit taller than. And lastly, here's the 62, I believe, King Kong versus Godzilla. And you can see this is actually a stockier figure than the previous ones, but still, the Biollante Godzilla is a slight bit taller. Probably actually closer to like maybe like a half an inch taller, actually. So he might be one of the bigger NECA figures that I've got in my collection as far as Godzilla goes, and certainly when you take the tail into consideration. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think he holds up with even some of NECA's best, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm happy with this. And here he is next to two SH Monster Arts figures. This is the 1994 Godzilla. This is the first one they've done. And this is the heavy arms version of Mechagodzilla, Kiryu, Mechagodzilla 3, whatever you want to call him. And you can see that he stands pretty much dominant over either one of these figures. So NECA plays with the scale, I will admit that. Like their more recent Godzilla figures have been larger, as I just pointed out, than some of their earlier ones. But the reason why I picked this Godzilla to bring in, I'll move Mechagodzilla back, is to show that the tail is very similar. The way they've done the segmented joints and stuff, and the length of it, it's pretty much spot on. So I don't know if NECA took a page out of Monster Arts' book, or if they just, I don't know, came up with something that worked on their own. But either way, I'm glad they went with that because it does make this figure a lot more impressive to look at. So I say that just in case somebody might have missed the earlier SH Monster Arts figures. You could pick this up and have a pretty comparable figure. Maybe not necessarily in terms of like overall quality or anything like that, but this is certainly nothing to be upset about for what the price was, like what, 25, 26 bucks. I'm pretty happy with this altogether. And finally, here's the Mezco Kong figure, who's much stockier obviously than the Godzilla figures, but height wise this is actually not bad at all. Kong is proportioned kind of a little bit differently, like his head is much larger and everything, which I believe is probably going to be true of the MonsterVerse fight anyway that comes out next year. So I don't know, you might be able to actually use these two figures together if you're doing, you know, animation or photography or something like that. These two don't look bad together at all. So there's that. That option is there for you. Take it or leave it. So yeah, if I gotta be totally honest, I actually really like this figure. I think NECA did a really good job on this. I've been critical of a lot of NECA's Godzilla figures, but this one I actually think really stands out. It's nicely done. It looks great, in my opinion. You can see that I've got it posed up with some different lighting and building props and everything, and I think it works. So yeah, if you find it in, you know, the 25, 26, whatever dollar price range, I would say go for it. If you're a Godzilla fan, you'll like it, I think. Or if you're somebody who doesn't have a Godzilla figure and you just want kind of one catch-all, like all-purpose Godzilla, this one is a really good one to get. Again, like I said, for the price, it's impressive. The one thing that I really can't show you is how he pairs with Biollante, because the SH Monster Arts Biollante is like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and I don't know that I'll be getting the reissued version because of that. It's just, you know, maybe not in my budget right now, but either way, happy to have this Godzilla. Anyway, my name is Captain McKay. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you learned something from it. All right, take it easy, and we'll catch you in the next one. Later on.